Hey, everybody. How's it going? It's Tuesday. How you feeling, Ben?
Feeling good, baby.
All right. Cool.
Bears won. Go Bears.
Oh, yeah. The Bears did win.
But it's set 2020.
All right. Good God. Football season end. Yeah. All right. Your Ben Joravsky show for Tuesday, September 17th is just moments away. But before we get into that, the Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board and sponsoring our program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky Show starts now. Oh, wait. Hold on.
Whoa.
I know what's going on. Hold on. False start, everybody. That's a football term, right? False start.
Backfield in motion, baby.
What song is that?
Backfield in motion.
Who sings it?
Who sings the back? You know,
you can make it up. I won't know.
No, but I know the name of the group. I just can't think of it right now. Great song from the 60s. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, baby. Sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. Talk more about the song.
No,
please.
Backfield in Motion. Great hit for who does it? I think it's the same group that does Cowboys to Girls. Cowboys to Girls.
Both
Cowboys to Girls is one of the greatest songs of all time. All right? It most definitely does not suck. There. Just said that. When we talk about the Bears, how about those Bears, ladies and gentlemen? What a great win it was.
How about that Trubinsky, huh?
I don't believe there's an N in that name. Let me double check.
Trubinsky?
Nope. No.
How do you pronounce it?
Trubisky.
Trubisky. Oh, thank God this isn't a sports show, right, Ben?
Yeah, yes, indeed. Those Bears, my beloved Chicago Bears.
Hang tight, everybody.
I'm going to talk about the Bears coming up in about 2 seconds.
Oh, awesome. Great. Just what I was hoping. Bears. All right, I don't know what's going on with our intro here. We may have to redo
Just
that.
sing it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
I'll just sing Backfield in Motion. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
There you go. That'll bring the listeners in.
All right, let me see who sang Backfield in Motion. I'm going to look it up on my phone. Good.
All right. Oh, you almost cursed. Okay, so I'm just going to do the intro because I know exactly what's going on, and I got to get the techie Brian on this, all right?
Get the big brain with Brian in here.
Yeah, we're going to do that in a second here. So today on the program, we welcome... Oh, hold on a second. Oh, good Lord. Today's show's going to be
off to a great
something
start
interesting.
here.
Off to a fantastic start. All right. Today's show, we welcome our Chicago Reader colleague, Maya Dukmasova. She's back. Sun-Times writer David Roeder will join us. And we welcome 42nd District State Rep candidate Ken Mejia-Beal. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Benny J. Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. Where's my music? Anyway, we're calling this Tiff Tuesday. And here's what. Wait, I need you for this. Dr. D has left the studio. Unbelievable. This is a great opening. Wait, where are you going? Beloved bubble. Anyway, great weekend, everybody. Have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good weekend, D. Yeah, it's okay. I'll see you when you come back. Bears won, as I was saying. Eddie Pinheiro kicked the game-winning field goal with less than a second left. And I went from Bears suck, I hate this team, to bear down, Chicago Bears, just like that. Yes, indeed. I am a fickle Bears fan. Saw a really great movie. I urge everyone to see it if you're politically inclined. And if you're listening to this show, you're obviously politically inclined. It's called Official Secrets. It's a movie that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, and it's about the dirty dealings of the George W. Bush White House in the early O's to blackmail United Nations countries into supporting their invasion of Iraq, into supporting a war that need not have been fought in the first place, into supporting a war that was waged for a whole bunch of reasons that were based on lies. Anyway, having seen that movie, Official Secrets, I have to tell you, I'm going to have to say something right here, D, that I never thought I would say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Are you ready for this? I knew that was coming. Donald John Trump is not the worst president of my lifetime. No. He's He's not even the worst president of this century. That honor or dishonor falls to one George W. Bush. I think it's pretty obvious. If you watch this movie, it just brings back memories of what George Bush did and what he did to our country by getting us involved in 2 wars for which there was really no justification, 2 wars which we're still connected and tied to. And I'll say this about Donald John Trump. He talks so much trash when it comes to foreign leaders, foreign countries, what they're up to. But so far, and D, I don't want to jinx us, all right? I don't want to jinx us in any way, but so far, he has restrained himself from sending in massive amounts of troops to ignite wars. So I have to say this, that in contrast with George W. Bush, Donald Trump is an improvement. I know it's going to get me kicked out of every lefty group that I've ever been in, and I love my beloved lefties as much as anyone, but I just had to say it.
I'll start packing our bags here during the show.
Our bags are packed. Anyway, but it's true. You go see that movie, Official Secrets. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, what else is news from this weekend? Oh, yes, I woke up today to read in my beloved Bright One and the Tribunal as well. Judge Neil Cohen threw out the TIF lawsuit that we've been talking so much about here on the show, the Lincoln Yards TIF lawsuit. We predicted this would happen last week, and Judge Cohen followed up on our prediction by saying, yep, Ben, you were right. I'm tossing this sucker out.
That's correct.
All right, now follow me, people. I'm going to try to keep it simple. I know I'll lose a lot of you when I start talking TIFs. You're like, it's so confusing. Oh, just take my money. All right, here we go.
Is that an impression of anybody in particular?
Oh, that's just an impression of Chicago voters when it comes to TIFs. I'm so confused and befuddled. Oh, just take my money. All right, anyway, so here's the deal, folks. Mayor Rahm, in his infinite wisdom, convinced the Chicago City Council and its infinite wisdom in the last meeting before Mayor Lori Lightfoot took over to raise your property taxes by dedicating $1.3 billion of your property tax dollars to rebuild an already gentrifying neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. And they're going to finance a Lincoln Yards TIF. They're going to, the Lincoln Yards project. They're going to underwrite that project. It's a great deal for the developers, a bad deal for you, the property taxpayers. You're going to watch your property taxes go up, up, up. Anyway, Grassroots Collaborative and the Raise Your Hand Coalition filed a lawsuit in circuit court asking that the judge dismiss the case, and it came before the distinguished jurist Neil Cohen. All right, D? And so he had to decide, what am I going to do? And yesterday he made his ruling, and I will now read David Roeder's account of the story, which includes this quote from Judge Cohen. You ready?
Today's guest, David Roeder?
That is correct. The world comes together. Here's what Judge Cohen said. The complaint here does not allege that the city's purported inequitable use of TIF districts has impaired plaintiffs' ability to provide services or otherwise operate. The complaint simply alleges that plaintiffs have chosen to focus advocacy against the city's use of TIF district funding rather than other causes related to their missions. The facts alleged in the complaint clearly show that plaintiffs have no standing to bring suit against the city, as they show no distinct palpable injury to a legally cognizable interest fairly traceable to the city. Now, I know most of you are responding to that by saying, huh? What? Huh? Could you please translate that into English, Ben? Well, since you ask, I will. You know, D, I'm doing a lot of translating these last few days. I translate Lori's speech into real English. I spent 8 years translating the gobbledygook Rahm told you into real English. I spent 20 years translating Richard M. Daley. I've become quite good at translating.
Don't translate all those curse words people have been sending you on your text.
Oh, no. Come on, man. You know me. I don't swear. So anyway, as a public service announcement, as a public service, I should say, I'm now going to translate Judge Cohen's ruling into real English. Are you ready, folks? And it is basically, Mama Cohen did not raise any fools. Yes, indeed. I said that last week, and here's the deal. Judge Cohen was essentially saying, you think I'm going to piss off some of the most powerful people in the city of Chicago and the county of Cook by joining you in your lawsuit, Raise Your Hand Coalition and Grassroots Collaborative? As a corollary, D, as a legal corollary, I now cite a ruling established by the brilliant legal theorist Ordell Robbie. Have you ever heard of Ordell Robbie, D?
No, I have
All
not.
right. Well, Ordell Robbie, I'll tell you who he is. Ordell Robbie is the sleazy arms dealer played by Samuel Jackson in the movie Jackie Brown, which, by the way, is Quentin Tarantino's greatest movie and the third greatest movie of all time, just behind Chinatown and Crooklyn. All right?
A Quentin Tarantino tie-in on the Ben Joravsky show? Shocking.
Whoa, the world is coming together. Anyway, here is the great quote from Ordell Robbie, as played by Samuel Jackson. My ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumb ass. Okay? That was the quote, and I believe that's what essentially Judge Cohen was saying yesterday as he said, you think I'm dumb enough to throw this case out? Oh, no. Find some other sucker to do this. I saw what happened to that old Ben Joravsky guy when he spoke out against this loss, against this TIF deal. So he came up with some legal gobbledygook to essentially say, I'm not doing that dirty work. If you want to throw this TIF out, you're going to have to find another judge to do it. So anyway, yes, indeed, it's a terrible deal. It'll raise your taxes. It'll take from the poor to feed the rich. It'll divert money from the schools. And it will raise your taxes. Did I say that already? Yeah, one more time. It'll raise your taxes. But to quote Ordell one more time, my ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumb ass. We got a great show today, everybody. Maya will be here, D. Maya will be in that seat. She's got a
Our
whole...
Chicago Reader colleague, Maya Dukmasova?
Yes, Maya Dukmasova will be in that seat. She's got a lot of things she wants to talk about, all right? Okay, she already told me. She's got a lot on her mind. I cannot wait to talk to her about politics. David Roeder. Oh, man. The hardest working reporter in the city of Chicago.
Oh, my God.
Every time we see him, he's on the phone, right?
If any of you take a trip to the Sun-Times building and you just see a man in the corner with 3 computers, 1 phone, his tie all messed up, that's David Roeder. Huh? Leave me alone. I got work to do.
It's just like the average white man said, I got work to do. That's David Roeder. Anyway, he'll be in here with a lot to talk about, a lot of development. He had a very interesting column yesterday, which as soon as I read it, I reached out to him and go, David, you have to come on and talk about this. A little deep dive, folks, okay? We're going to force you to think a little bit here about how the real estate market in the city of Chicago has been inflated a bit by some of these companies like Uber and Lyft that may not actually survive, D, over the next 10 years. But right now they're riding a wave. Could it be a bubble? Is there a real estate bubble in the city of Chicago? We're going to talk about that with David Roeder, and also talk about the GM strike. David Roeder, of course, is the labor reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. GM is on strike. And, you know, folks, we're a very objective show here. We just look at the views. We take no stands, right? Mick Dumke always says you're not supposed to take a stand, right? Just objectivity. So let me just say, go striking workers. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Come on, GM. Don't be so cheap. Share some of the money. You made $35 billion over the last couple of years or whatever by getting concessions from your workers. How about sharing it a little bit? You ever heard the word share? Didn't your mom tell you?
Fantastic
Share.
singer.
Very good. Look at, whoa.
Sonny Bono.
How did you know that? The beat goes on. I got you, babe. I got you, babe. I got you. Anyway, David Roeder will be here. We'll be talking about all that. And Ken Mejia-Beal will be here, state rep in the 42nd district. This is fascinating, folks. Jeannie Ives, remember her? Jeannie Ives, probably the most conservative state representative in the history of the world, ran against Bruce Rauner on the grounds that he was not conservative enough. When she did that, she gave up her seat to a woman named Amy Grant, as a Republican, not the singer.
Oh, okay? My mom loves Amy Grant.
I knew you were going to. Amy Grant? For 10 trivia points, who is Amy Grant married to?
Horace Grant.
General Ulysses Grant. I have no idea who she's married to. I'm mixing her up with somebody else. Who's married to Tug McGraw's son?
Who?
Tug McGraw was a pitcher for the Mets.
Please.
His son is Tim McGraw. Who's married to Tim McGraw?
Oh, Faith Hill.
I knew that. Anyway, Amy Grant is a right of center state rep, and Ken Mejia-Beal is running against her. And that would be awesome for the Democrats to unseat Jeannie Ives' successor in the 42nd district. So we'll be talking politics all day long. But before we do any of that, the young man from Alton, the man they call White Lightning, has the news.
All right, everybody, let's get it back in order here. Let's get the show straightened. Play the damn song. There we go.
Oh,
let's do this.
Let me do my whole intro again. Woo!
No, we're not doing that. It is Tuesday, September 17th, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. And now your host, Tim McGraw's biggest fan, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. We're starting all over again. I'm just going to say one thing about Neil Cohen's ruling in the Lincoln Yards TIF suit. Quote, my ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumbass. And now, Dr. D with the news.
All right, everybody. We begin with what's happening in Illinois and or Chicago this afternoon. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot, what? What's so funny?
I love that line so much. My ass may be dumb, but I ain't no dumbass. Or Dell.
All right, we begin with what's happening in Illinois and or Chicago this afternoon. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot's Tuesday schedule includes a visit to the Chicago Cultural Center to kick off the 2019 Chicago Architecture Biennial, then to City Hall to deliver remarks on the naturalization of 25 new Americans in Chicago. In the afternoon, a meeting with Chicago police brass, and somewhere in the middle of all that, I'm sure there's going to be a luncheon. Lori Lightfoot loves luncheons, everybody.
Yeah. Sorry.
Mayor Lightfoot and one of her harshest critics in the city council are joining forces on one particular topic. Let's talk about it. It's time for another episode of Ben Joravsky's favorite daytime soap opera, A Mayor and Her Alderman. A Mayor and Her Alderman. Ben, please put the popcorn away. We got a show to do.
Sorry, man.
All right, it's quite possibly the douchiest fad that this podcast producer has ever seen in his lifetime so far, vaping.
Oh, yeah, vaping. Mm-hmm.
And Mayor Lightfoot is joining those around the nation in cracking down on electronic cigarettes.
Yeah, no good.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Fran the Woman Spielman. Mayor Lightfoot and Alderman Ray Lopez. Ben, quick, what ward is Ray Lopez?
Come on, man. 1-5-15.
Huge dork, guys. But hey, he's still got it. He's still got it. Now, although these two politically can't stand one another, Lightfoot and Lopez agree on one thing, that they're not about to sit around waiting for the Food and Drug Administration to draft the guidelines needed to yank products off the market that are tailor-made to lure young people into a lifetime of addiction. During a news conference at Crane High School, Lightfoot said she plans to propose a Chicago ban on flavored e-cigarettes. Lopez wants broader action. He's poised to propose a ban on all e-cigarettes and liquid nicotine products. Lightfoot said that she's starting with flavored products because, as she put it, they serve as the, quote, gateway in which children become addicted. The mayor continued, quote, the companies that produce and market these products see children as part of their bottom line, as shameful as it is. And I say this both as a mayor and as a mother. We will not stand idly by as flavored tobacco becomes young people's most common path to addiction. Children are using these products and becoming addicted, and the companies are targeting them. We want to eliminate that possibility. Ben, we haven't talked about this much on the program. What's your take on electronic cigarettes? Have you ever vaped? If so, what's your favorite flavor? And are Raylo and Lightfoot doing the right thing here?
Okay, wow, that's a lot of questions, man. And I smoked so much reefer in 1980, I can't keep track of them all. All right, let's see. I can't remember which one, but no, I've never vaped. No, I've never smoked a cigarette. Never smoked a cigarette. Never been attracted to a cigarette in any way. So I'm not really qualified to address this issue, but the addiction that people have with cigarettes, the attraction people to have towards cigarettes. D, I've never felt it. I know back when I was young, guys would be like they would like see the Marlboro Man on TV and they just want to have it do it, and I could kind of do it. I mean, look, you know, I just like. But I just never was. By the way, it was pretty good, huh?
It was decent.
Hold on, I gotta put my cigarette out.
Fantastic podcasting here, guys.
I never was into it, man. I mean, when I was growing up, everybody smoked cigarettes. In fact, if you see a movie, a period piece from the 60s and so, you'd be stunned how many people, here's an opportunity for you to talk about, guess what? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Do you know how many times they're smoking cigarettes in that movie, set in 1969? They smoked cigarettes on airplanes. They smoked cigarettes on TV talk shows. Johnny Carson would smoke cigarettes. I thought always it was an obnoxious habit. I didn't think people looked cool doing it. But so I'm not really qualified to talk about this, but people are so addicted to cigarette that when they banned cigarette smoking in public places, they started doing this vaping stuff. And you know how I know this, D? I tell you how I know this. At the bowling alley, all of a sudden these guys would be vaping. And they didn't even look anyway cool. They look like Cruella DeVille. You know who Cruella DeVille is,
yes.
D? Okay, very good. Your knowledge is astounding. All right? So they look like Cruella DeVille, and they're just addicted to cigarettes. On the other hand, D, I got mixed feelings. The libertarian in me is saying, if people want to give themselves cancer by smoking cigarettes, should we, the government, stop them? Shouldn't they be free to give themselves cancer as they want to? I don't know, D. I'm just struggling with this one right now. I'm really all over the map with this one. But I'll tell you this, anything that gets Raylo and Lori happy and the same page, I'm happy for them, all right?
So you say Raylo and Lightfoot are doing the right thing?
What is that called in the TV show where you get to make the phone call? The Lifeline thing?
Yeah, phone a friend.
Can I phone a friend and see what to say?
We don't even have a, no.
What does Maya say? Whatever Maya says, I say, all right? There we go.
All right, and what would an episode of AMAHA be without an update that somehow involves the alderman who shook down a Burger King in his ward?
Oh,
That's right, greasy 14th Ward Alderman Ed Burke.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there we go.
God help us all. What's he up to?
Rock hard justice has been served, my friends. The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times, and once again, Franz Bielman, a veteran political operative who supplied FBI mole and former alderman Danny Solis with a steady supply of Viagra and allegedly arranged for the former alderman to receive sex acts, has been slapped with a stiff penalty.
Oh,
that's right, a penis joke on the Ben Joravsky Show. A $25,000 fine to Robert Caldero for failing to register as a lobbyist. The Chicago Board of Ethics' hefty fine against Roberto Caldero comes 8 months after the Chicago Sun-Times blew the lid off the explosive charges against Solis that prompted the former alderman to spend 2 years wearing a wire to help the feds build their corruption case against indicted alderman Ed Burke of the 14th Ward. The board concluded that there was, quote, probable cause to conclude that Caldero, a close associate of former U.S. Rep. Luis Gutierrez, had, quote, engaged in several acts of unregistered lobbying in 2015 in violation of the city's ethics ordinance. So there you are, another development with Ed Burke. What do you say, Ben?
Well, I have a lot to say about this. You know, it's really interesting how justice is meted out in the city of Chicago, all right? Ed Burke ruled the city for years and years and years, finance chair, overseeing every single TIF deal, every single budget, all union contracts, workers' comp, et cetera, and so forth. This powerhouse, people throwing money at him left and right. And he was finally caught shaking down the Burger King operator, right, to try to force the guy, the Burger King franchisee owner, to get to hire Burke's firm to do its property tax work. Finally, all of a sudden, everyone's outraged, right? Well, how is he punished? He's reelected by the voters of the 14th Ward. That's how he's punished, all right? Meanwhile, Roberto Caldero, who, by the way, I knew him back in the 80s, D. Did you know that? I knew him when he was a young man.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew. I haven't seen him since like 1983. Hey, Ben, what's going on? He was kind of a cool guy, you know. Had his hair back. I don't think he'd ever vape anything, all right? So somehow or other, Roberto Caldero, who bought the Viagra for Danny Solis that Danny Solis needed for whatever reason, is being hit with a $25,000 fine. Now, how is it that Ed Burke is still a sitting alderman in the Chicago City Council, making a lot of money, getting health benefits that you're paying for, taxpayers, and yet Caldero's the one paying the $25,000? I ask the same question when I look at Michael J. Cohen sitting in federal prison. Is it Michael J. Cohen? Or Michael Cohen sitting in federal prison while his client, Donald John Trump, gets to be president of the United States. Somehow or other, D, it doesn't seem like the people who really did the wrong things ever get punished for the wrong things that get done. Do you follow me? So am I outraged that Caldero got fined $25,000. I can't really get too upset about it one way or the other. Why he was up to his eyeballs and no good with Danny Solis. But on the other hand, good God, folks, why do we always punish the weakest people in the city of Chicago and let the powerful one go unscathed? Think about that.
Ooh, I will have to think about that. All right, so what will happen next? I guess we're just going to have to wait. And I guess another episode of A Mayor and Her Alderman will be very, very soon. To be continued.
It is pretty. Raylo is just like Raymond Lopez, who is pretty closely allied with Mayor Rahm. Had that one little spat with Mayor Rahm. Where he went public, and I was the guy who quoted him. Remember, I think that may have been before you and I met, D. No, it was after we met because he came on the show, the old show. Remember that? But he's basically got along pretty well with Rahm. Was a consistent voter for Rahm. Voted for those crazy TIF deals. Now all of a sudden he's found his inner Tom Paine. He's his inner independent, his inner maverick, whatever. God bless you, man. Stand up to the mayor. There should be at least one alderman willing just to stand up to a mayor. I think just in general.
Oh, and hey, if you haven't heard the news, over the weekend, the Ben Joravsky Show reached 2,000 likes on our Facebook page. And to celebrate, we're having a caption contest. It's a Lori Lightfoot caption contest. Say what? It's true. Head over to the Facebook page as soon as possible and leave us a caption if you haven't yet. We'll announce our top 3 captions at the end of Wednesday's show. Wednesday's show is when we'll do that.
And what are they winning?
Nothing.
Oh, they're not getting a blue Mustang?
No.
Oh.
Never have, never will.
Okay.
The picture is posted on top of the page. It's one of Lori Lightfoot fresh off of her mayoral victory during her trip to our nation's capital and her visit with, no, not President Donald Trump, the president's daughter, Ivanka. Quite a few of you have already left your captions, so what do you say we read them, Ben?
I say it's a good idea.
Excellent. I think so, too. So the picture is Mayor Lightfoot sitting down with Ivanka Trump. All right. So, and just sitting down, looking at each other. Picture that as I read Hunter's caption. Hunter's caption, it's Lightfoot. I gave up a Jeff Manuel performance for this.
Hunter's obviously a listener of the Ben Joravsky Show. God bless
Excellent
him.
piano player, that Jeff Manuel.
Yes,
Book him. Book him.
What's the quote from the commercial? Whee! That's Maya's favorite moment every Tuesday. She loves that.
All right, on to Carl's caption. Carl puts, now this is Lightfoot talking here. Once again, Ivanka Trump and Lori Lightfoot sitting across from each other. Carl says, I hate his politics, but I have several of your father's suits.
Oh,
Carl with the Lightfoot joke there. How about Tony? Tony's caption. This is Lori Lightfoot once again talking. Okay, Tony. What do you mean I need to get my pants tailored? All right. She does have long pants. All right. On to Hank's comment. Hank's caption puts, your dad should try using TIFs. Nobody will figure it out.
That's true. Send that guy something.
No.
All right? This car is in the mail. What was his name again?
His name's Hank.
Hank, it's in the mail.
On to Robin's caption. Robin's caption, this is Lightfoot talking again. I don't think you know what a moral compass is, and that your father has none.
That's here to that one.
On to Zulma. Zulma left us a caption. Zulma puts, for the life of me, this has to be a nightmare. Life-size plastic Barbies breathing and almost talking. Pretty good. How about Paul's caption? Paul puts, this is Lightfoot again talking to Ivanka. Lightfoot says, now, Ivanka, blink twice if you need me to repeat anything, okay?
Paul's
good.
pretty clever. All right, Pablo, I see you.
And we'll do one more. Pablo, it's Paul. We'll do one more from Zulma. Zulma puts, and it's Mayor Lightfoot talking. Let's see here. She puts, is that notebook as full of... Okay, that's a curse word. Keep the captions coming, everybody. J-O-R-A-V as in Victory, S-K-Y, at Benny J Show, B-E-N-N-Y, the letter J Show. Like I said, at the end of tomorrow's show, Wednesday's show, we will announce our top 3 captions. Yeah. All right, now let's end it out with some state news here. In case you didn't know, our bill-signing Illinois Democratic governor has been on the injured list. He broke his femur, and he's been out of commission ever since. But good news, J.B. Pritzker is getting his groove back, Ben. For the first time in weeks, we have a public event listed on J.B. Pritzker's schedule.
Wow, that is interesting.
Tonight, Governor Pritzker will be attending the China General Chamber of Commerce Midwest Chapter dinner at the Hyatt Regency. For those who want to stop by and check in on the big fella, it starts at 6:30 and it's at 151 East Wacker Drive in Chicago.
Well, good to hear he's back in the saddle, right?
Yeah.
Back in the block.
You were on the mend there for a while. You had your nose, your face all messed up.
Yeah.
Anything you want to say to JB who's getting better?
JB, I've been there. I understand. I can relate. Come on. Get back in that horse. And you know he loves horses.
And on Monday, Democratic Illinois Congressman Mike Quigley held a lunchtime fundraiser starring J.B. Pritzker. Sources say the event brought in roughly about $50,000 for Quigley re-election campaign. At the moment, Quigley has only one re-election foe, a progressive by the name of Brian Burns. Also on Monday, a picture of the governor standing on both legs and smiling was all over Twitter as a group of faith leaders met with Pritzker and Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton in Springfield. Good to hear he's doing better, right, Ben?
I'm happy to hear that. You know, he's done a good job, in my humble opinion. Probably the best governor of the 21st century. Of course, it's not a lot of competition. And wait, Pat Quinn, all right? We all like Pat Quinn in this show, don't we, D?
Absolutely.
But I still think Pritzker's off to a great start.
So there you are, the latest in the local news. Hey, podcast fans, the team at the Sun-Times has a new show to add to your listening lineup. That's right, we got podcast neighbors here at the Sun-Times. This football season, get the inside scoop on the Chicago Bears with Hallis Intrigue. It's the latest podcast from the Chicago Sun-Times. Tune in to hear Sun-Times sports reporters and Bears experts. Like a lot of them, all right? A lot of these names I can't pronounce, so I'm not even going to bother reading them. But stay informed this football season.
Patrick Finley.
That's one of them. I knew that one.
Mark Potash.
Is that on there?
Yes, it is. These are sports. I read the sports page every day.
Stay informed this football season. Listen to Hallis Intrigue at Sun-Times.
Rick Morrissey, Rick Tallender. I'm doing this off the top of my head.
This is the important part, Ben, so please stop interrupting me.
Sorry, man.
Hallis Intrigue at suntimes.com/Hallis. And the spelling on that is Halas. And be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Check it out now at suntimes.com/Hallis. Halas. Don't go anywhere, people, because coming up after this short little break, our Chicago Reader colleague Maya Dukmasova will join us. We're going to talk all things politics. It's the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Sun-Times. Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Cameron Esposito.
Everything that I have ever tried to do has had two motivations. One is I really do believe in trying to create social change, and then the other one is I'm scared and alone too, so I would like for you to join me. You know, every job that I have, I try to make sure to hold the door open. That's like my motto for like if I get through, you're coming with me, and I believe in that wholeheartedly, and especially if I have more privilege than you, like I'm holding the door open for you even wider.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th for 2019 Chicago Ideas Week.
It's the butter cow, which has 9 hearts to represent the 9 essential nutrients in milk. That's right, it's made entirely out of butter, and it's a state fair tradition since at least 1922.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Get to know your city on one of Chicago Architecture Center's 65 walking tours. Hear the unforgettable secrets and stories behind Chicago architecture from our expert docents. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a tour right now. Oh, wow, look at that building. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Hey, Benny J, take it away.
Maya's in the studio. Maya was giving me trash talking the host in the break. I say, hey, Maya, I was at the Reader yesterday. She goes, oh, congratulations. What a wise guy she is. Anyway, Maya, welcome back. Were you there yesterday?
At the office?
Yes.
Yes,
work? Okay.
at work. I was at work yesterday, Ben.
Okay, yeah. Maya was there. Anyway, all right, let's get down to business. Maya wrote an excellent, what was the interview? So I don't know, do you call interviews articles? What do you think?
I mean, it's an article, but I didn't really write it. I mean, I did the interview and I edited and condensed it and transcribed it, but it's not, I wouldn't classify it as a piece of writing necessarily. All right. But yeah.
Fair enough. Anyway, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it immensely on many levels. So why don't you tell folks who you were interviewing and what the subject was in general?
Yeah, so this is in this week's issue of The Reader, which you can still pick up. Today's Tuesday, so you can still pick it up before the boxes start filling up with the next issue starting tomorrow and Thursday. And this is what we were talking about last week. The Reader is collaborating with the Marshall Project on this series called We Are Witnesses. And this is kind of a journalistic endeavor and public education endeavor that's built around these short films, filmed interviews with people who have had personal experiences with various parts of the criminal justice system in Chicago, either as workers in the system, as people who have been incarcerated, as family members of crime victims, as crime victims themselves. So it's just a lot of very different types of perspectives on the system. We are the print partner for the series, and WBZ is working with the Marshall Project on this as well, and Univision as well. So my role in this was to interview Bill Dorsch, who's a retired Chicago police detective who retired in the early 90s, and he basically was the original whistleblower on Reynaldo Guevara, who was the disgraced detective who is now famous for, or infamous for, having manipulated folks into confessing to crimes that they didn't commit. And so Bill was working alongside Guevara and witnessed this firsthand, and sort of was the first person to step up and say, you know, this is messed up, what's happening here. And he's testified in tons of lawsuits and depositions against Guevara since then, and really has become quite active in the kind of wrongful conviction research space. He's a private investigator now, but he also works with Northwestern University to help investigate possible wrongful conviction cases. And I think at this point he's played an important role in the exoneration of something like 24 people who were wrongfully convicted over the years. And it was a fascinating interview. I mean, the video that goes along with this interview, where, you know, he's speaking in his own words about his experience, is also really fascinating. And I would encourage everybody to go to the Reader website and look at these videos. We're also going to be having public events and screenings of these at various public library branches all over the next couple of months. So, but speaking with him, was really interesting because he's a real, like, he was really into his work as a cop. Mm-hmm. Like, he loved his job. He talks about it with a lot of pride. And, you know, he claims that the job didn't influence, like, his views on race, for example, even though he himself grew up in, like, a very lily white part of town, Jefferson Park, in the 50s and 60s. So but but most of his work happened in Black and brown neighborhoods around the city. But he sort of talks about the job in a way that, like, you know, there's like bad guys out there, and our job was to catch the bad guys, and I was good at that, and etc. So, but he also talked, like, he told me this, most of this didn't make it into this interview because we only had limited space, obviously, but he just talked about like incident after incident after incidents of just witnessing firsthand, like, just tremendous violence, just tremendously horrific things happening, like, in front of his eyes over, you know, years and years and years. And he says that he, like, just never took the job home and was able to completely compartmentalize, you know, and keep the stuff, you know, work-related stuff at work and not, you know, bring anything home. You know, I don't know if I really believe that kind of thing is possible, like what kind of mental resilience someone can have to completely be able to, like, not to witness, like, just like death and violence and pain every single day, and then, like, completely disassociate from that when they're off the job. But, you know, he said what he said. So despite the fact that it seems like the job was extremely difficult, he, you know, felt like he was doing good. And it was once he started seeing this misconduct that was aided and abetted by the bosses, who are all, you know, people who rise up to the ranks of the Chicago Police Department. You know, they're people who are usually they're politically connected people. I mean, basically the way he put it is like, there's people at the academy right now who know they're going to be bosses. It's just like, if you're not connected with the right people, you have no chance of, like, really getting up high in the organization at all. It's not a merit-based system whatsoever. It's all about who you know, whose back you've scratched, and sort of who your family is, and all of that. So, you know, I think that's not going to be very surprising to a lot of people in Chicago.
I would say the world is a who you know world. But
exactly.
Anyway,
so I mean, he felt so much kind of love and respect for the work that he did, and the integrity of the work was so important to him that when he started witnessing this misconduct firsthand, it's the way I kind of interpreted his reflections on it was that, like, it felt to him like a huge disrespect to the job, to have people be behaving in that manner, to have the, you know, people get locked up for crimes they didn't commit, that the whole system can't function if that kind of thing is going on. Which is why it became, like, important to him to like get out of there and work to undo some of this damage that was done by these, you know, by people who were just behaving in a criminal manner without any punishment on the inside of the police department. So as a result of his work and his, like, kind of stepping out and speaking out against Guevara and others, I mean, he lost all of his friends, like all of the people that, you know, he spent years and decades working alongside of, like, you know, he was just basically completely ostracized. And actually, this will connect to this in a second, but I mean, the police department canceled Bill Dorst. He was canceled once he spoke out. And people would, you know, there were death threats. People would straight up ask him, like, why aren't you dead yet? You know, it was like a completely taboo thing that he did to, like, speak out against one of their own.
What do you mean by they canceled him?
They just completely ostracized him. Like, he was dead to them, basically. He lost all his friends. People stopped treating him the way he describes it, as if people stopped treating him as one of them, but he became the enemy to them. He became a bad guy for like breaking rank, so to speak. So, you know, it's complicated because if your general stance is that, you know, our entire system of policing is messed up and there's fundamentally, like, it has to change in really big ways, that it's not just about bad apples and good apples, like the whole thing needs to be somehow rearranged so that we're not spending immense public resources on punishing people, but you know, who start quote unquote misbehaving as a result of basically, like, stressful conditions that they're living in, that, like, maybe we need to be reorienting things in such a way that, like, people aren't living in stressful conditions to begin with. But so I think for a lot of people who sort of have that view of policing, it might be hard to process the perspective of someone like Bill Dorsch, who was himself a cop, but I think there's a lot of other people who see a guy like Bill Dorsch as like the kind of cop we would want, like the kind of person you would want working this job. And then, you know, the fact that like to retain his integrity, it literally means like putting his life on the line, being harassed, you know, losing his friends, taking risks with, you know, potentially, you know, getting death threats, all this stuff. Like a lot of people are not going to sign up for that kind of thing. Like most people are not going to, you know, if they see something wrong going on, they're not going to speak up because I guess, you know, most people don't have a thick skin like Bill Dorsch does. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just it's an interesting perspective to hear, and I encourage everyone to check out the We Are Witnesses series.
Well, I had two things that I thought of when I read it, and one is from an old movie that came out way before your time. Came out, I think, in the '90s, called American Gangsters, and there's a Russell Crowe plays.
American Gangster came out in like 2007. I remember going to see that my freshman year of college.
You're right.
Yeah, I love that movie.
I sit corrected.
I love that movie.
He comes out of prison in the 90s. You're right. I'm wrong. Anyway, I love that movie too. I've seen it 3 or 4 times. But Russell Crowe's character, if you recall, stumbles upon I think
a bunch of money,
$900,000 in cash that a drug dealer had left in his car, and it's his to take. And instead of taking the money, he turns it in because it's wrong to take the money.
Yep.
And as a result, he's completely ostracized by his colleagues in the police force because they can't trust him anymore because he's so stupid as not to take $900,000. And it's just that culture still exists. When I read the Bill Dorsch interview, I was like, oh my God, this culture still exists. And I could actually say, I think what Bill Dorsch did did not warrant, in my humble opinion, any criticism or ostracism at all. Where I could kind of understand people being a little pissed at Russell Crowe in a weird way. All right, but all kidding aside, I just thought that it just shows you how much things haven't changed that much.
Well, yeah, it gives you a sense of what, like, if you're talking about, you know, reforming the system from the inside and giving these cops better training and all this other stuff, like what we're actually grappling with, like, is so much bigger than like getting them a new police academy building or better training or whatever, or mental health resources. Well,
I think it's all part of the same.
I mean, but it's just like the culture is so much more, like there's so much more that is unsaid, that are practices that are just like passed on from generation to generation of cops. And it's just like, it's an entire culture. It's its own society. Like, I think we have to think about police and the police department as its own society, like the way that, you know, our city is a society. Like it's its own culture, its own society, and the people who are part of that world live they can choose to live, and many of them do, I think most of them do, live entirely in a world that is supportive and reinforcing of that culture. They live in neighborhoods with a lot of other cops. They have their own accountants, their own lawyers, their own laundromats, their own real estate agents, like every kind of service you could possibly want to engage with. The police, members of the police department have their own people that they can go to that understand where they're coming from and who see their work as fundamentally good and right and necessary. Their kids go to schools full of other kids who are the kids of cops. So it's like to like changing the training manual or building a new police academy building. Like it's just like, it's like a drop in the bucket.
I see your point, and that's a good point. And the other thing that you raised in the article, or that Bill Dorsch did, had to do with not closing murder cases in poor neighborhoods and black neighborhoods. And this is a point that has been made in the past, but I don't think it gets enough attention. The whole notion of, if you do not close a murder case, then there's no accountability for the act of murder. And people think they can get away with it.
But closing a case doesn't mean anybody was held accountable, because the way that we mark a closed case isn't through the achievement of a conviction that also is like then withstands any challenge, right? It's like was there an arrest made?
Yeah.
So his point was like the pressure to clear. First of all, he told me stories about how like, you know, you'd make a burglary or robbery arrest, bring that in, and then his supervisors would use that arrest to clear a bunch of other open and unsolved burglaries or robberies in the same area.
So it's not a legitimate closing of a case. It's a
well, and furthermore, it's often not a legitimate closure of the case because all the police department counts as a closure is like an ordinary closure is like somebody was arrested for the crime. So there is no built-in incentive to arrest the right person because all they need is that arrest to count and to connect with this particular crime. And
so there's no accountability overall. And this is the argument that has been made for hiring more detectives, to have more detectives to actually investigating really serious and important crimes in the city with proper training, et cetera, and so forth. So that was another thing that popped out. I urge everybody to check it out. The interview. I'm the bad guy. Bill Dorsch interview Maya did. All right, Maya, let's change the subject a little bit. You raised, there's two things I want to talk to you about, and I got the eye on the clock because I know you got to get out of here. Your car's parked, and you're probably towed as we speak, just for saying the things you just said. Oh, she's friends with Dorsch? Let's tow that car.
Yeah, and they're like right across the street from here. So
this down
let's
the street.
Keep it moving.
Yeah, all right. She's got a car. So anyway, cancel culture. This is something on your mind. Explain to people what cancel culture is.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess to explain cancel culture, which is like you have to understand what people mean when they say something is somebody or something is canceled. Basically, it's like a way of saying that it's not okay to support someone anymore if they are, if like somebody's been accused of sexual misconduct of some sort or like racism or other kind of behavior or actions or words that are we are deeming as like no longer acceptable. Like if somebody crosses that line, they're the way like the social media parlance for it is like they're canceled. I actually think that the best observation I recently saw about this is that like canceling is just like another word for consequences. That like what we're actually doing is like there's consequence. Somebody's experiencing consequences for doing or saying something shitty. But I think that even as far as but this like a kind of trend of talking about basically calling people out for doing or saying shitty things and then like saying they're canceled or treating them like they're canceled, like R. Kelly being canceled is like it's like no longer okay to listen to R. Kelly and like be like supporting him by going to his concerts and buying his records or streaming his songs or whatever like that, because R. Kelly's canceled because R. Kelly is, is basically all but a proven pedophile. And I mean, I'm just saying, like accused of like many decades of all kinds of pedophilic behavior with like all kinds of credible evidence to that effect. So the kind of response to this, way that we talk about the way that we call people out for bad behavior or words now is that like this is now like we're in this like era of like cancel culture, and that's bad because that means that we are kind of moving to silence people who we disagree with. But to me, like the sort of, I don't know, best observation I saw about this online recently, like I was just reading this Twitter thread today, but it's like there has always been some kind of ostracism. Like when, like in a society, there's like things that are okay and not okay to say and do. And that like, since people have organized themselves into societies, like the consequences for doing and saying things that people don't agree with, that like the mainstream society doesn't agree with, is like you get ostracized, you get exiled. And it's not, it's like, I think people are right to say that there's nothing new or novel about quote unquote cancel culture. That what's changing is that the umbrella of things that are not okay to say or do anymore has grown, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that because, as you pointed out earlier, like who was the guy from SNL?
I forget his name, but he's a young comic, 31-year-old comic. I can't remember his name. Just call him Billy Bob.
Yeah, I mean, the standards basically are changing. So jokes that were okay to make, 10 or 15 or 20 years ago.
He got kicked off at Saturday Night Live because it was revealed that he made some offensive jokes about Asian Americans. I forget, in a bit. I don't know when it was. And he lost his job. And there's some of his supporters are really upset about it.
Right. So, 20 or 30 years ago, maybe it would have been totally fine to say that stuff. And you wouldn't have been canceled or exiled. But, now our society has come to some kind of, shift in perspective that actually, hey, that's not okay to say. So somebody is facing consequences for that. And by the way, no, I don't understand why anybody who doesn't live under a rock can credibly be like, well, I didn't know that it was that it wasn't okay to say this stuff. Because especially if you work in the media, if you work in comedy on a show that's one of the most watched shows in America, there's it's you know that there is a change in perspective on certain kinds of humor. And so if you want to continue to pursue that way of making jokes or writing or whatever, I feel like you have to be somewhat prepared that it's not going to go over well. And I think what I hear when people are speaking out against cancel culture is well, this is unfair to people. We're exiling them and ostracizing them, but they may not know that standards have changed or whatever. And I mean, I don't know but that's the way exile works in a society. Dante was exiled.
Listen,
Jesus was canceled. Jesus literally was canceled. That's what happened. He was saying a bunch of stuff that the mainstream culture did not like, and then they fucking canceled him.
Okay, I'm not comparing the guy who just lost his job at Saturday Night Live to Jesus, but I will say this: in just this our discussion today. You gave another example of ostracism.
Yeah, Bill Dorsch was canceled.
He was canceled. And so what I'm saying is that I believe it's sort of there's a normal reaction. If people hear something that irritates them or offends them or enrages them or angers them or upsets them, they will turn against the person who is causing those feelings. And sometimes, in my humble opinion, it's an irrational, unjustified reaction against, I think it was irrational and justified for cops to turn against Bill Dorsch because when he did the right thing. I just personally feel that way. In some cases, I'm really struggling with this, for instance, with Michael Jackson. I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. And it's the story of how he treated young boys is pretty upsetting. So how far do I go with that? So now they still play him on the radio, by the way. I just heard Billie Jean the other day.
Look, the thing is that I think that we should, by all means, think critically about the way that we conceive of punishment and accountability and our tendency to want to obliterate people who cause us harm or offense, because I think that for the most part, punishment doesn't actually solve anything. But I think that there's the cancel stuff, the ostracism and exile, that's been going on forever. Nothing is new about that. I think what's disingenuous is when people are out of one side of their mouths, warmongering, pro-punishment, people who spew opinions about how we need to, run our society with an iron fist and go after people who don't fit in one way, shape, or form. And then at the other side of their mouth, whenever it's one of their types of people that gets canceled, they're like, no, we need to rethink our systems of punishment. You can't be for mass incarceration and for giving people prison sentences for marijuana, then be complaining about cancel culture. You're who's consistently against cancel culture? Prison and police abolitionists, because they don't believe that punishment is is like the answer is not punishment in any context. So I mean,
that's taking it to an extreme. Yeah,
well, yeah, but say what you want, but at least it's consistent.
Yeah.
You know, so what
Well, if you're looking for
the people
consistency.
foaming at the mouth about cancel culture are like fine with punishment when it applies to anybody but their own types of people.
Yeah.
So
No, this I know what you're saying. This is one of my favorite topics. Right wingers, when people get insulted by what right wingers say, they call them snowflakes. When people criticize right wingers' positions that they have, like let's say their opposition to abortion, well, that's a deeply rooted religious belief. That's you can't that you.
or
cross
I
the
mean,
line.
look, even
it's
Bill
like,
Darsh and the cops, like he basically snitched on them. And they're not okay with that. And he's canceled because he snitched on them. But in the streets, the problem is that no one wants to snitch.
Yeah.
Like,
well, yeah, you're right. And think about this. I mean, the aldermen in the city council, how enraged they got at Danny Solis for wearing a wire. They didn't get enraged that Ed Burke was shaking down Burger King operators or, developers, etc. They were mad at Danny Solis for wearing the wire. By the way, I know you got to go and get your car before it gets towed, but Caldero got fined $25,000 from the ethics committee. The Ethics Commission of the City of Chicago for providing Danny Solis with Viagra. I just think it's so bizarre how punishment gets meted out. Meanwhile, Ed Burke is still an alderman in the Chicago City Council. Anyway, Maya, great job as always. I didn't even get a chance. I'm urging you to see the movie Official Secrets before you head out the door. I saw it this weekend. I found it. The star of the movie kind of reminded me of you. I'm just going to put that out there.
Wow, okay.
She's a whistleblower, a badass with a capital B, and she pays the consequences for revealing secrets about the lying that went on to gin up support for the George Bush's war against Iraq. I urge you to see it, and we can talk about it next week. All right? Very good. That's Maya. I'm Ben. We got all our guests are piling in here, man. I love it when guests come early. We'll bring them on when we return. Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
The secret to being a good debater is devotion to the truth. Not winning the argument, but telling the truth, and I think that's what I've heard from voters.
And if you can't do that, fake it.
Hey, everybody. What you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. J-E-F-F. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Boy, he loves loves that Jeff Manuel. Your Ben Joravsky Show, hour number 2 for Tuesday, September 17th is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions once again for jumping on board and bringing back the Ben Joravsky Show. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. Hey, you unions, you guys are awesome. Thanks. Can't thank you enough. And, of course, today's program is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Now, the first hour, this didn't work out too well. Let's see if we can make this one work. Hour number 2, let's go. Yeah, there we go. It is Tuesday, September 17th. And live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, Sun-Times writer David Roeder will join us, and we welcome 42nd District State Rep candidate Ken Mejia-Beal. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Mejia-Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. Ken Mejia-Beal is on deck. We're going to bring him on pretty soon. Running against Amy Grant to take back. I don't think the Democrats ever had it, so I can't say they're going to take it back. But to win in Jeannie Ives' district. If that happens, that's like hell freezing over. But Ken says he's going to do it. I like a confident politician when he's of the Democratic persuasion. So Ken's on. I love it when guests come early. Dave Roeder in the studio, as we said before, the hardest working man in journalism. Every time we see him, he's on the phone. He's got those 2 computers going, working deals. He's the business and labor reporter, so he covers both sides of the beat.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm working on replicating myself like 3 or 4 times here. You know. But
yeah, he's a busy guy. We got about 4 items I want to run down. Basically, I bring him in to talk about one of my many obsessions, development in the city of Chicago. Also, the GM strike. I'm going to pick his brain on that one. D, before we do that, what you got for me?
I got an update here. And first off, if my mom just tuned in, no, not that Amy Grant,
oh,
okay?
Yes, not that Amy Grant.
Singer of Baby Baby, all right? All right, we do have a update here involving a congressional candidate as well. It says here, the following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and Lynn Sweet. Democratic House hopeful Marie Newman in a primary rematch against that damn Dan Lipinski was endorsed today by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a move by the controversial charismatic freshman that could turn out progressives and turn off centrists in the suburban Chicago district. So, Ben, we already had an endorsement from Elizabeth Warren last week for Marie Newman. Now AOC. Are Dan Lipinski's days numbered?
I am hesitant to say that. That Lipinski machine is a pretty powerful machine. They know how to turn out the vote. I thought Marie Newman was going to eke out a win in 2018, and Lipinski managed to twist enough arms and bring out enough voters to beat her. So I still put my money on Lipinski just because I got to see it. I got to see an old machine go down. But I'll tell you this. That district is politically more to the left than people realize. Bernie took that district in the Democratic primary in 2016 against Hillary Clinton. So I don't think Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's endorsement is really going to be that controversial. It may be controversial on the Gold Coast of the city of Chicago, where people love that Rom Kool-Aid, but I think in the 3rd congressional, I got a feeling that'll go over a lot better than people realize. So, but Lipinski's a tough act to beat, man.
All right, so we're gonna have to wait to find out and see if the effect of the AOC endorsement, well, how that'll take place. We are having a caption contest, by the way, people. It's a Lori Lightfoot caption contest. A picture of Lori Lightfoot sitting with Ivanka Trump is begging for your caption at the moment. Head over to the Ben Joravsky Show Facebook page at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, and the spelling on that last name, JORA, V as in victory, SKY. Send us your captions. We'll announce the top 3 winners at the end of tomorrow's program. And before we get out of here today, we'll read more of your captions.
All right, very good. David Roeder is my guest. David Roeder is, of course, the business and labor reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times.
That's correct.
Thank you, Robert Mueller. And David, as soon as I read your story in yesterday's paper, I sent you a text going, we got to talk about this because I thought it was a fascinating story. And then since then, there's been 3 others that I want to talk about. So I have a list here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll get to them all, and including the General Motors strike, the UAW strike against General Motors. But before we, let's start with the story yesterday. It was a column, I guess, real estate bubble in the city of Chicago, not just the city of Chicago. I suspect that business districts like in New York, Minneapolis, LA, probably facing the same situation. And that is that there's an expanding real estate market fit with many vacancies filled by companies that may themselves not be thriving in about 10 years. Talk about it.
First, a couple things going on. First, we've got Uber expanding greatly here. And, in its last quarter, Uber lost $5 billion. Now, I never went to business school, but I'm told that that's really hard to do. It's kind of crazy. And even on just kind of a normal operating level, there was some special things with that big loss, but they're still losing about $1 billion a quarter, and they haven't proved their business model yet. But they're signing some some long-term leases here. That's one thing. And landlords are, falling all over themselves to try to do a deal with Uber because it's got some cachet. The other thing is we're getting this all this expansion of flexible office space, shared office space. The biggest company in the business is called WeWork, and that again is a money loser. They've had to delay their own plans for an IPO because their results are so bad. Wall Street was holding its nose, but they're expanding, and the more they expand, the more money they seem to lose. So. What is
only in the business world? Yeah.
So what's going on here? Some of it is landlords are kind of taking a chance themselves. They can do some things to kind of protect themselves in a lease, but you see some of this going on often in like the later stages of an expansion where people are trying to take some chances before the music stops. So there's a lot of that going on. It does make you wonder if some of these companies collapse or have to scale back. You're going to have some empty office space in this town. I think that's something to look at. It might be something for the mayor to think about, since she's talking about taxing downtown real estate more and the like. It's got to be a concern of hers. The market overall has been going good, for a number of years, and there's more office space coming. Seems like the markets can handle what's coming, but if you start getting a real pullback, a recession here, you could start seeing a lot more vacancies.
Well, let's get into what you just said about Uber, and it applies to Lyft as well, the ride-sharing companies, the business model, and whether that'll be successful. Now, obviously, when you lose $5 billion in a quarter, it's not really successful. It just goes to show you how bizarre the business world is from the real world of most people. Most people lose $5 billion. Well, most people never receive $5 billion. But if you lose $5,000 in a quarter of a year, most people are worried, can I pay my bills? $5 billion is no joke. So that suggests strongly that it's propped up by a faith, whether it's justifiable faith or not, in the future of that company. And yet there was, and I know you follow these things, we talked about it last week in the show, there was a law passed in the state of California, one more time, everybody, hasn't been signed yet by the governor, Newsom, but he says he will sign it, in which Uber and Lyft drivers will be treated as employees of the company and not individual contractors. And what does that mean? That means that Uber and Lyft will have to probably pay their employees more money. They'll have to spend more money on their employees. And that business model that you were just talking about, David, seems to be based on the notion that they won't have to spend more money on their employees. So suddenly, does the business model work if you got to pay the people who do the work more money?
Yeah, you ask the Uber people about it, and of course they're dead set against making these gig workers, their employees. But they say, hey, we're helping, part-timers, we're helping independent businessmen. One of their big things here is Uber Freight, which is, guys with trucks, driving around and and getting jobs to haul stuff. We're helping independent business people. So yeah, if you make them employees, if they have to pay benefits, this starts looking like an even more difficult proposition. How many billions of dollars more are they going to lose? Yeah, it looks a little odd. One thing that could happen is maybe parts of the Uber in some form. That's just some speculation on my part. But for the daily pickups that we see that competes with the cab business, that's how most people know Uber. We'll have to see if that survives or not.
Well, now let's put on your real estate pants for a moment. Say you're a landlord. Let's say at the post office, the newly converted post office, the old post office, the enormous facility in the Southwest Loop, which is now going to house Uber and thousands of employees. Do you commit to a long-term lease with the company Uber that you're uncertain whether they'll even be around?
There's probably a few things I can do. I could say to Uber, yeah, I'll sign a lease, but you got to have an escrow account with your rent money, up front. I got to see that. If you're talking to some other, like a similar tech startup, you might say, hey, get your venture capital partners to put some money into an account here. I want to make sure I'm not on the hook here. Landlords have some things they can do to protect themselves, but really they are taking, kind of a leap of faith. Landlords get to be somewhat in the business of their tenants as it is. So they've got to, understand what's going on. And some of them, they're rolling the dice a bit.
Let's talk about the other big news that you wrote about. I talked about it briefly already. Well, not briefly. I ran in and railed about it. The judge tosses suit versus Lincoln Yard's TIF deal. I have my opinion as to why the judge did what he did and as to why Lori Lightfoot did what she did in fighting the TIF deal. I'm really curious what your thoughts are, but just so everybody knows, there was, as soon as that Lincoln Yard TIF deal was passed by the city council, and Mayor Rahm in his last act as mayor, it was challenged. The TIF deal was challenged by the Grassroots Collaborative and Raise Your Hand Coalition, two activist groups in the city of Chicago, on the grounds that it's illegal. And a circuit court judge, Neil Cohen, ruled yesterday that those plaintiffs did not have standing to file suit, and he tossed that case. You've been following that. You were in court, right?
Yes, which was entertaining and interesting because it was clear how the judge was going to rule. Although he reserved final judgment, but it was decided strictly on standing. The judge kind of sympathized with the groups involved, saying, "Yeah, I understand what you're doing, and you're exercising your freedom of speech. That's all great here, but to challenge this policy, you've got to show some actual harm from it." Mm-hmm. Their response was, "Well, our harm is that we spent money on fighting this," and the judge says, "That's your decision. That's not harm." Yeah. So you could tell which way it was going to go. So he kicked it out pretty far. What in my own conversations with the groups involved, this was one thing. This was a legal avenue they were following. What the real thing is this is lobbying now. This is working on the Lightfoot administration to examine that TIF as it goes forward. And seeing if expenditures, are reviewed and approved as on an ongoing basis. Does she want to, change any of the, the limits there? I don't think she is of a mind to revoke the TIF, but she could scale it back and possibly, I think, be on good, solid, legal grounds there. But I think the the volume of this tip, the massiveness of this, it does give her pause, certainly.
Yeah, and by the way, she campaigned against it, and she spoke out against it. So, but seeing, I thought it was interesting that she sent her lawyers. It was the Lori Lightfoot's administration, as I've pointed out many times in the show, fought the lawsuit. So city lawyers were in court arguing against Raise Your Hand Coalition and against the Grassroots Collaborative. And they're the ones who made the arguments that Judge Cohen ultimately bought, which is that the plaintiffs had no standing to file the suit. So it'll be interesting. So in many ways, I've been arguing that she's lost the leverage of this lawsuit that would have forced, that she may have been able to use to force concessions from the developers. So we're going to see how it all plays out. Do you think they're going to appeal? Did they say whether they're going to appeal the decision?
They haven't said that yet, but I mean the legal arguments on this seem pretty clear, and the judge's mind was made up pretty quickly. I don't think there's much of a gray area on that legal question.
Yeah. All right, so let's move over to the General Motors situation. And I talked about this very briefly at the outset of the show, and I pointed out, David Roeder, that I am an objective journalist, and that I look at both sides of any story before I render an opinion. And so as an objective journalist, it's General Motors, this gazillion-dollar corporation, the UAW, the workers. And so absolutely, I am not taking a stand in this anyway, in any shape or form, except to say, stop being so cheap, General Motors, and pay your workers. Sorry, David, I don't know where that came from. Why don't you render a little more objective analysis of what's going down in there?
My hope in this is that the strike isn't going to be very long. I think, even over the weekend, there was a little bit like almost conciliatory language on both sides, indicating that maybe they're closer to reaching a deal here. The union did what it had to do. It took its people out. There's not going to be a great effect on consumers for some time because they've got several weeks of cars worth of cars in the dealerships already. Mm-hmm. So people aren't going to be seeing a lot of this right now. But you've got issues here about the two-tiered pay system for more senior versus less senior workers. They argue that it kind of hurts the feelings on the factory floor when you got people doing the same work for different pay. You've got pretty large health insurance costs that the company faces. They're trying to scale that back, and they targeted GM because after its turnaround, GM has been posting some real healthy profits too. So they think they can get a deal there that'll be used as a pattern for Ford and for Fiat Chrysler. I just hope this isn't going to go too long.
What impact will it have on the Chicago economy? Do you see any impact of the strike?
You've got a number of suppliers here. But Ford is the biggest automotive presence here, and there's no direct hit there. But you've got some GM suppliers that will have to watch out, with what's going on right now. So this right now it's very limited, and hope it'll stay that way.
Well, and when you mentioned that the way these negotiations take place, if like General Motors cuts a deal that's a little more generous for its workers, that could be the prototype that Ford would have to follow. So that could be an impact on Ford. Mm-hmm. I'll just read this paragraph from the New York Times before we move on. This is their coverage of the strike. With no other option, the United Automobile Workers agreed to allow General Motors to hire new workers at roughly half the hourly wage of those already in the payroll and with significantly reduced retirement benefits. In the following years, GM was also able to bring in temporary workers with even slimmer wage and benefit packages and little job security. The bitter medicine helped reinvigorate the automaker, and for the last several years, it has been reaping record profits. Along the way, it has pared its United States payroll, closed several plants, and move more workers to Mexico. Quote, we have given away so many concessions over the last 8+ years, and this company has been ridiculously profitable over that time. That's why we're here. We're fighting to get everything that we lost back. That's Chaz Akers, an assembler.
And they're fighting to get some of those plants back, like Lordstown, Ohio, that Trump made a big deal of. It'd be interesting if we'll see if Trump ever tweets support for these guys doing this thing.
That's a great point. Donald Trump has always articulated his support, whether he's followed up with real action, but he's articulated support for workers in these disputes. This is he gave the richest people in the country a huge tax break last year. This will be interesting to see if he weighs in and uses the power of the tweet for this one. Before I let you go, David, any development updates you want to share with our listeners, stuff that you've posted today?
Yes, today we're writing about some changes involving the Chicago Board Options Exchange here and its corporate parent. Always a big presence here in downtown Chicago. They're moving their offices into the old post office, the aforementioned humongous thing. But what I thought was kind of equally interesting was they're relocating their trading floor, what's left of it, into the old Chicago Board of Trade building at the base of LaSalle Street there. That was actually where they were born in the 1970s, and they had their operation there. They outgrew it, moved to 400 South LaSalle, where their business grew exponentially, and now most of that business is electronic. A lot, the trading floor is a fraction of the size that it used to be. So they're going back into the space they used to have. So a little bit of nostalgia there, but their corporate move to the post office just signifies what a what a big center for corporate relocations that place has become, and kind of a new area for companies that pride themselves on being tech savvy and all of that.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I recall years ago there were so many people employed by the trading empires here in the city of Chicago, and you'd see them in the Loop running around at lunchtime.
You'd always see them with their bright jackets. Yeah.
And as things change, as that industry changes to become more computer-based, you see fewer and fewer people in bright jackets. Mm-hmm. So there's an impact for landlords right in the city of Chicago right there, Mm-hmm. They have fewer people downtown. Who's going to eat in the restaurants? I've always argued that I won't drag you into this argument, that one of the reasons that's cited for an opposition to the LaSalle Street tax is that these companies will move and will lose the jobs. Well, I got news for you guys. We're losing the jobs already because of changes in their industry. So maybe we have to.
Yes, but if you talk a transaction tax, this is one business that can literally flick a switch and send the trading into some server outside the city.
Or outside the state. Yeah.
Or outside the state.
Yeah. And that is, by the way, I know some left of center people who probably heard you say that, David, and are just like screaming, no. Maybe we'll have that debate some other time. David Roeder is my guest. David, thank you so much. He is the ace business and labor reporter for my beloved Bright One, the Chicago Sun-Times. Great job as always, young man.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that's David Roeder. Ken Mejia-Beal from the 42nd District in the western suburbs is sitting on deck. What a monumental task. He's going to be a Democrat who wins Jeannie Ives' seat. I can't wait to introduce him to everybody. We'll be right back after this.
Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Hannibal Buress.
The real reason I came home is just because I was traveling a lot anyway. I wasn't in New York that much, and I don't have a full-time job in New York. I work a lot, but I'm not in New York, so it was just like I don't need to be here anymore. And also I just wanted to work on different stuff here in Chicago. So I have this center that I'm working on the west side, Melvina Masterminds. It's going to be arts and then a tech program and after school programming for kids in the North Austin area. So just wanted to be back.
There we go.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th.
Come October, I'll address those challenges further in my budget speech.
The secret to being a good debater is devotion to the truth. Not winning the argument, but telling the truth, and I think that's what I've heard from voters.
And if you can't do that, fake it.
Or that. Fake it till you make it.
There is. Listen, I mean, President Clinton got the kid from Hope, and his story was relatable to where people were living their lives. President Obama was about the audacity of hope and what his candidacy embodied and what it meant for them in the country. And it is very important to relate to people and be relatable, where they can understand what is in here. They're going to pull the hood up, and we've seen it, all of us who've been helping candidates or run ourselves. People are going to, the voters that are watching tonight and thinking about becoming Democrats in this upcoming election, they're going to see what moves this. Not just the ideas, but what motivates.
It's Chicagoland's adult entertainment playground. It's the world-famous Admiral Theater, 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. The Admiral is homegrown from Chicago, and it's the most conveniently located club in all of the city. 15 minutes from the O'Hare Airport in downtown Chicago Loop. Voted Chicago's best strip club, the Admiral has showgirls galore and a variety of adult entertainment shows. The world-famous Admiral Theater, open every day from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., 3940 West Lawrence Avenue. For events, showtime, and other information, visit admiralx.com. Must be 18 years of age or older to enter.
All right, everybody, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by the damn finest thrift shop in all of Chicago, Green Element Resale. It's located at 6241 North Broadway, and people, it is amazing, all right? Books, furniture, antiques, clothes, all kinds of things. Yes, it is a thrift shop, but it's the only thrift shop that helps bring you the Ben Joravsky Show. So if you're ever on Broadway between Granville and Devon, stop into Green Element Resale and tell them thank you. I'm looking at their website right now, just pulling up some of the things I'm seeing here. They got pictures of all the things in Green Element Resale. Oh, there's a picture frame. Picture frame, everybody. Get it now while it's there. Green Element Resale. I see a couch. There's a mattress. Oh, so many things at Green Element Resale. They may be sold out of candles because, boy, our host Ben Joravsky sure loves candles. My goodness. What's your favorite candle these days?
The cannabis candle.
Oh, still the cannabis candle.
Yeah, I love the cannabis candle.
Most people would light a candle to get rid of that smell, but you like the smell so much that you just get a cannabis candle. It's fantastic, guys. Green Element Resale. Find their website, greenelementresale.com. Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m. Sundays, 12 until 7 p.m. Green Element Resale. Go there and save tons of money. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Ken Mejia-Beal sitting with me in the studio as candidate for state representative seat 42 in the western suburbs. We're going to bring him on, talk about politics and how the Democrats can win a seat that I bet you 10 years ago no Democrat thought could be taken. But it's right there for the Democrats, right there within reach. All you got to do is reach up and take it. 42nd District, GDI has represented it until she decided she was going to run against Bruce Rauner. D, you got an update for me before I bring Ken on?
Absolutely, I do. If you haven't heard the news, over the weekend, the Ben Joravsky Show, we have reached 2,000 likes on our Facebook page. And to celebrate, well, like we always do, we're having ourselves a caption contest. It's a Lori Lightfoot caption contest this time around. It's true. Head over to the Facebook page as soon as possible and leave us a caption if you haven't yet. We're going to announce our top 3 captions at the end of Wednesday's show. The picture, just begging for your caption, is posted at the top of our page. It's one of Lori Lightfoot, fresh off of her mayoral victory during her trip to our nation's capital and her visit with Ivanka Trump. For some reason, Donald Trump wasn't around. So she met with Ivanka Trump, and that's the picture that's posted, all right? Quite a few of you have left us your captions. So let's go ahead and read the captions we have here. We did this earlier, so we'll read the ones that we've yet to read. Once again, the picture begging for your caption, one of Lori Lightfoot and Ivanka Trump just sitting down, staring at each other. All right, so picture that as I read. Dar weighed in.
Oh, hey, Dar, what up?
What's going on, Dar? Dar, it's a simple one. Dar's caption is Lightfoot to Ivanka. Lightfoot saying, "What the hell is wrong with your father?"
Yeah, it sums it all up, doesn't it?
How about Ed's caption? Ed, now this is Lightfoot talking here. Lightfoot says to Ivanka, "Hey, does your dad still know those Russian loan sharks? I have a friend who might need to borrow about $800 million.
It's always good to know a Russian loan shark.
How about Sonia? Sonia's caption. Thank you so much for weighing in, Sonia. Sonia puts, and then once again, this is Lightfoot talking. Once again, picture Lightfoot and Ivanka staring at each other. All right, Lightfoot says, "You do know we're going to get rid of that hideous sign on the Trump Tower."
Can't get rid of it fast enough, as far as I'm concerned.
Look at my building.
Hank weighed in. I like Hank's. Hank says, now this is Lightfoot talking to Ivanka. Yeah, and then I told Burke to STFU and STFD.
Okay.
Ben, what's STFD?
I have no idea. It's some kind of millennial
It's
thing.
sit the beep down.
Oh, I see. That's that millennial talk.
STFU is shut the beep up. We're getting them hip, guys.
Yeah,
We're getting them hip.
I'm really hip, man.
Well, we're getting there.
What is hip? One of my favorite songs from the 70s.
And there went that hipness. Okay. Jeff weighed in with a caption. Jeff puts, "I dare you and your Cheeto father to come to Chicago."
Very good. Cheeto. Get it?
Two more, yeah. Two more here. How about Trent? Trent's caption, and this is Lightfoot talking. Lightfoot says to Ivanka, "Hey, I was in Trump Tower last night. The rats are in the basement." And finally, Brett weighed in. Brett says, "Seriously, though, how do you deal with him? We can just turn the TV off. You're related to the guy."
Yeah, that is tough. By the way, the winner of this contest, free copy of the Mueller report.
Oh, you're going to give him your copy?
No. They're going to get this blue Mustang.
Oh,
vroom, vroom.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Mid's not going to mail that to you either.
The Mueller report. Read it. I read it. You
Keep
read
the
it.
captions coming. At the end of Wednesday's program, we will announce our winner at Benny J Show. BENNY, the letter J Show. JORA, V as in victory, SKY. We look forward to reading your captions. And keep it clean, guys. All right, watch your mouths.
Yes, anyway, as I was saying earlier in the show, I saw the movie Official Secrets this weekend. Great flick. And having seen Official Secrets, I urge everybody who's politically minded, and if you're listening to my show, you're politically minded, to go check it out. And it made me think, Dee, as I said earlier, that Donald John Trump may not be the worst president of the 21st century. George W. Bush is right up there. You can make the argument that George Bush is worse than Donald Trump. I urge everybody to check out Official Secrets. All right, Ken, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it. It's a schlep coming in from the western suburbs, and I appreciate you taking the drive.
Thank you for having me.
All right. You are running for 42nd Legislative District, and as I've been saying all day, that's Jeannie Ives' old seat. Jeannie Ives, of course, is a little to the right of Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump. She's out there, and her successor, Amy Grant, is pretty much cut from the same cloth, politically and ideologically speaking, so it is a long shot. And yet you're announcing your campaign. You're already running. Just take the moment to introduce yourself to people. Tell a little bit about who you are and how you got here.
Sure. So within the movement, I've done a lot. Before 2016, so before Trump got elected, I was doing stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm currently the national co-chair for the NAACP's environmental department. I am a People's Lobby co-chair for the Fair Tax. I am on the Vernetta Gray Council for Howard Brown Health. I'm on the Equality Illinois Advisory Panel. So what I do is I take a look at what can be done policy-wise. So right now we're in an era where we have a lot of activists that want to run for office, and I encourage them to. But what we need is someone that has the activism side, but also can get policy passed. That's what I do. I have passion, but I also have purpose, and I know how to get stuff done. And we are as we move into the future, we have to have more of that. We need more folks like myself that can say, this is what I'm passionate about. This is the problem. These are the solutions. And we don't have enough of that.
Are you from the district yourself? Is that where you were born and raised, et cetera?
I've lived in the district for over a decade. I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I moved to the district when I was, 23, 24. And I've been there ever since.
Now, let me ask, that's interesting right there. I did not know you were from the city of Chicago. I should do a bit more show prep. I thought you were from Lisle, which is...
I live in Lisle.
Oh, live in Lisle. Okay. So what high school did you go to?
John F. Kennedy.
Oh, you went to Kennedy High in the
I
southwest
sure
side
did.
of the city of Chicago. So what got a kid from the south side of Chicago, the southwest side of Chicago, that's where John Kennedy High School is, a kid from the southwest side of Chicago to move to Lisle?
Sure. So what got me to move, my job moved. And the commute is a long commute. So I decided to move. I moved to Naperville to cut down on my commute time. And then I had a change of employment, and I decided to stay because I love where I live. I love the community. I love the camaraderie. I love where I live. So that's why I stayed there.
And, you know, when I was just moved to Chicago, DuPage County was largely a white community. It was a very conservative community. It would not be the kind of place where a black kid from the southwest side of Chicago would find roots. Things have obviously changed in DuPage County since I moved to this area back in 1981.
Absolutely. So DuPage County is a very open community. And yeah, there are conservative people there, of course, but there's conservative people everywhere. What I love about DuPage County, though, is you know where you're wanted and you know where you're not wanted. And as someone that's from Chicago, that's a problem in Chicago, is that you really don't know where you're wanted and not wanted. In DuPage, it's very clear, like, you're welcome here, or we really don't want you here. So for me, it's a safe space for everybody, as long as you can navigate it well.
And did you get involved in Democratic politics in DuPage County almost from the moment you got out there?
No, I stayed involved in Cook County politics, to be honest with you. I did not think that my voice and my actions were going to be appreciated in DuPage County. At the time, I was a lot younger, and I've always looked a lot younger than I am. And the first Democratic event I went to was, back in 2008. And I was kind of patted on the head and said, nice ideas. And I said, okay, this isn't where...
This is out in DuPage County.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I said, okay, this isn't where I'm going to be able to inspire change. But then, around 2016, after Trump was, there was a huge space where my ideas and my thoughts were now wanted and asked for and sought out. So then I stopped working as much in Cook County, and I started working within my own community.
What were some of the pivotal races in DuPage County that inspired you to think that you could run for office out there as well?
So in 2018, I worked on a lot of the midterm races, and a lot of my friends were elected to office. And that's not even what inspired me to think I could run. I did not fully decide to run until February of this year. Because I know that I am the best person for the job. And I didn't look at it as a Democrat-Republican thing. I looked at it as I am simply the most qualified person for this position. I have a property tax background. I have a very extensive knowledge of taxes. And I've also had personal experience within the healthcare community, within the environmental community, that means I can go to the table with something.
As I was saying earlier, Jeannie Ives was the state rep from the 42nd District for many years, and the 42nd District has a huge chunk of it is in Wheaton, which has always been traditionally a conservative town. There's a debate going in the Democratic Party. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Sure.
Where there's some advocates who say that the best way for Democrats to win is to sort of emulate the Republicans in their district and just be a little more moderate. So in this case, you would be against reproductive rights because Jeannie Ives was against reproductive rights. You'd be against gay rights because Jeannie Ives was against gay rights. You'd be against any kind of funding of any kind of social program because Jeannie Ives voted no almost every time. Or are you going to just be an open, progressive Democrat?
So I want to say something really quickly. The seat does not have Jeannie Ives' name tattooed on it. It is not Jeannie Ives' seat. It is the seat of the people of the 42nd District. So number one. Number two, I am very open about my, I'm very much for women's reproductive rights. I'm very much for LGBT rights. I'm very much for human rights. I'm not going to hide that. Where we have a problem as Democrats is messaging. I am good at messaging. At the end of the day, we can talk about talk to conservative Americans about these issues, and we might not agree, and that's okay. Let's talk about what we do agree on. And I think in this country especially, we have been taught not to talk about politics instead of how to talk about them respectfully. I knock on doors. I meet people that are very much anti-choice. They do not slam the door in my face because I say, this is where we disagree. What can I do to help you? And we talk about it. I think we have to have room for conversation, and we have to have room to disagree.
What are some of the issues? That's a point I never considered. What are some of the issues in which you can find agreement with an anti-choice constituent on?
Well, whether the anti-choice constituents are lacking money, the cost of living in Illinois is increasing, and it is driving people away. I sat down with a bunch of small bar business owners when I decided to run. The cost of alcohol revenue is putting them out of business. That's why I've gone on the record and said I'll be a consistent no vote on raising it anymore. It's too much already. I'm against vice taxes. That's where we agree. Where else we agree, heart attacks are not Democrat or Republican issues. They happen to everybody. And I've never met a Republican that's wanted dirty water and dirty air. These are universal issues. Our messaging just has to be on point, and that's what I do.
Well, if Republicans don't want dirty water and dirty air, they sure have a funny way of showing it. The President of the United States is annihilating environmental oversight programs.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, when I say Republicans, there's a difference between, for me, fundamental Republicans and Trump supporters. There is a fundamental difference. Trump supporters won't open their door for me, and that's okay. I have had conversations with Republican Americans who have openly disagreed with me, that they won't sign my petition, and ask me politely to leave their front porch, and that's okay, because I'm not for everybody.
So wait, so Trump supporters won't even, they see you and they just don't even open the door?
No, they will not open the door.
Do you have like a big button on that says Ken Mejia-Beal, 42nd District? I mean, they know why you're there?
I mean, let's face it, Ben, when you see me walking down the street, the assumption is that I'm a Democrat and I'm knocking on your door.
People can see why we're on there, so they can make draw the conclusion,
I've never been asked at a door, oh, are you a Democrat? Or the assumption is that I'm a Democrat, which is,
And so, all right, you said it's not Jeannie Ives' seat.
No,
it's the 42nd legislative seat. That was a pretty good line. On the other hand, she was reelected several times. She was very right-wing. She was so right-wing that she was outraged by Bruce. She didn't think Bruce Rauner was right-wing enough, and she ran against Bruce Rauner, and she gave up the seat. So her successor, Amy Grant, was challenged, and it was a little closer than I expected. I think it was 52 to 48. Don't quote me on that.
No,
or
you're
something
correct.
like that. So talk a little bit about that 2018 race against when the Democrat Carrier came close to defeating
Sure. So I want to say first, Kathy Carey is a really good friend of mine, and she's my outreach director, and I have a lot of respect for her. She ran a great race. I believe Amy Grant won because of name recognition based on mistaken identity.
I mean, they thought she was the singer.
Correct.
Wow.
So, I mean, if we look at that, all things considered, I believe that's why she won.
Yeah.
But with that said, I'm more focused on Because at this point, I'm not running against Amy Grant. Yeah. I'm running for the people. I very seldom talk about her. She's not in my rearview mirror. She's not in any mirror at all.
You should change your name to Lionel Richie.
I don't want to do that.
No, just kidding.
I don't dance on ceilings or anything, so that's
I'm just saying,
not my thing.
If people get confused by a name, I love Lionel Richie. Who doesn't like Lionel Richie?
They see Amy Grant, Lionel Richie, like, holy crap, this town. A lot of awesome people live here.
I might consider it. Who knows?
You know, whatever. It's just an idea. Okay, so what are the issues like that you think are those wedge issues that you can bring over Republican voters,
sure,
or moderate voters, or swing voters?
So my core, I think in Illinois we can stomp out chronic illness. I think a lot of the focus is on medication. Mm-hmm. My focus is on we can get rid of type 2 diabetes. Let's do public education on it. My issue is let's get rid of AIDS in Illinois. Let's eradicate it. Don't get me wrong. I want to focus on medication too. But at my core, I want to put out fires. Mm-hmm. I think as a state, we walk around saying, let's put out fires. How about we avoid the fires in the first place? So what I do is I take a look at issues that we have in this state and how we can avoid them completely. And that's my platform. And that is where I get a lot of the community to come together. I'm not a politician. I've never pretended to be. I'm a guy that works a 9 to 5. I pay bills, I pump my own gas, and I curse sometimes because it costs a lot. I get it. I'm also a guy that was unemployed, and I had to make my unemployment last over a week. Mm-hmm. I've been there. And it's hard for most of our state reps and senators, God bless them, are lawyers and consultants. They don't know what it's like to go paycheck to paycheck. In my district, an unexpected bill of $600 shakes a family, mm-hmm, whether it's my district, your district, any district. That's what we have in common.
You mentioned that you're supportive of the fair tax, and that, of course, is the initiative sponsored, or backed, I should say, by Governor Pritzker, mm-hmm, to make wealthier people pay more in taxes, to make our system more progressive. And so presumably we'd have less dependence on the property tax, which, mm-hmm, is going up, not just in Chicago, but in DuPage County, where, mm-hmm, you're running. What's your sense of how people in DuPage County are seeing the fair tax?
Well, it depends on who they have gotten their information from. There's a lot of misinformation going around that says that Governor Pritzker is going to tax everyone and it's going to be crazy and we're all going to be homeless. Well, that's not true. At the end of the day, I believe everybody should pay their fair share. Mm-hmm. And that's what I believe it is. Now, do I want to see more bracket numbers and see better breakdowns? Absolutely. I'm an analytical guy. But at the surface level, I think if you are making millions and millions of dollars, you should not be in the same tax bracket as a single mom that's bringing in $26,000 a year. Mm-hmm. I think that's fair.
Ken Mejia-Beal is his name. He's running for state representative as a Democrat in the 42nd District. That's a suburban district of DuPage County. Jeannie Ives' old seat. It's not the Jeannie Ives seat, but
Absolutely
it happens
not.
To be her old seat, and I find it very intriguing that the Dems could take Jeannie Ives' old seat. We're going to have more with Ken when we return.
Just biked around Lake Michigan, nearly 1,000 miles.
Rahm Emanuel, winners and losers tonight, if any.
Well, there is a lot of people got a chance to advance their campaign. I actually, if you look at the whole field, I think that Vice President Biden did, Senator Warren did. I do think that Mayor Pete, Amy, Senator Klobuchar, and Senator Harris all got a chance to advance their campaign. They had moments that will be taken away. I think the biggest loser in this is obviously former Secretary Castro, that I think had a moment that he actually went tougher and meaner, and it had a streak that is not going to work for him. I do think this. I think the party, I would say the first two debates, the party did not do well. I actually think the party this time as a whole, we showed the slew of candidates collectively, you walk away, the gestalt, the moment, the party actually is a little more in a better position. What worried me, we were talking about this earlier in the Pew poll, that Democrats were, ever since the presidential debate started having a negative impression.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. See the city from a whole new angle on a Chicago Architecture Center tour. With more than 85 tours to choose from, there are endless stories to discover. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm on a tour. Oh my, what magnificent architecture! Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident.
Many of your opponents support a commission to study the issue of reparations for slavery. But you are calling for up to $500 billion in financial assistance. What makes you qualified to determine how much is owed in reparations?
Well, first of all, it's not $500 billion in financial assistance. It's $500 billion, $200 to $500 billion payment of a debt that is owed. That is what reparations is. We need some deep truth-telling when it comes. We don't need another commission to look at evidence. I appreciate what Congressman O'Rourke has said. It is time for us to simply realize that this country will not heal. All that a country is a collection of people. People heal when there's some deep truth-telling. We need to recognize that when it comes to the economic gap between blacks and whites in America, it does come from a great injustice that has never been dealt with. That great injustice has had to do with the fact that there was 250 years of slavery, followed by another 100 years of domestic terrorism. What makes me qualified to say $200 to $500 billion? I'll tell you what makes me qualified. If you did the math of the 40 acres and a mule, given that there was 4 to 5 million slaves at the end of the Civil War, there were 4 to 5, and they were all promised 40 acres and a mule for every family of 4. If you did the math today, it would be trillions of dollars. And I believe that anything less than $100 billion is an insult, and I believe that $200 to $500 billion is politically feasible today because so many Americans realize there is an injustice that continues to form a toxicity underneath the surface, an emotional turbulence that only reparations.
Thank you very much. Senator Sanders.
Hey, listeners, get the inside scoop on all things Chicago Bears this football season with the annual Sun-Times Bears magazine. Dive into features of players, coaches, games, and plays, and get excited for the 100th season of football. 100 seasons, holy cow. This collectible magazine is just what you need to get ready for this fall. You can order your copy of the magazine right now at suntimes.com/CST shop. And when you get that magazine, one thing you're not going to be able to read is this little noise. What's that football noise, Ben?
Reset 2020.
Yeah. Ready, set 2020. Grab your copy today. Once again, it's suntimes.com/CST shop. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show. Mr. Joravsky, take us home.
Ken Mejia-Beal, a candidate for 42nd Legislative District out in DuPage County, is my guest. He's running as a Democrat, a pro-choice, pro-gay rights Democrat. I know it's hard to believe in Jeannie Ives country, and he's telling me it's not Jeannie Ives country. All right, it'll soon be Ken country. How about that? Kids Ken country. Anyway, I got this email while we're in the air from Terry Cosgrove, who's always bossing me around for Personal Pack. And Terry wants me to remind everybody that Personal Pack will be having its big fundraising luncheon Monday, September 23rd. Cecile Richards will be the guest speaker, and she, of course, is the former head of Planned Parenthood, the daughter of Ann Richards, the great governor from Texas from way back in the day, before anybody in this room was born, or at least was following politics. And so Cecile, and she'll be a guest on the Ben Joravsky Show, I believe, tomorrow, D. So,
cool.
Yeah, I know, very cool. And so Terry Cosgrove said, if you want your tickets, get them at www.personalpack.org. Personal Pack, PERSONALPAC. Terry Cosgrove, big force in Illinois politics for many years and a regular guest on the Ben Joravsky Show.
And Terry actually just texted me, Dennis, tell Ben to put on his big boy pants. Whoa!
Yeah, Terry and his big boy pants. Oh, man, did we argue. Terry Cosgrove and I spent the better part of 2018, or at least the first part of it, arguing over whether I should vote for Dan Biss, Bob Diber, or J.B. Pritzker, and I think Terry was. I voted for Biss. Terry voted for Pritzker. Anyway, we argued that point. Ken, you are a supporter, one more time, of reproductive rights.
Absolutely. I believe a medical decision should be between a patient and the doctor, period.
Have you met the great Terry Cosgrove yet?
I love Terry.
Okay.
I'm going to see him next week. I love Terry. He does great work.
Are you going to be at the luncheon on
Absolutely.
Monday? Oh, okay. I'll see you there. I'll be there as well.
Yeah.
All right. We were talking about the uphill battle, or I was talking about his uphill battle. It's been a Republican seat for a long time. Carrier, who ran in 2018, made some strides, got 48% of the vote. So, that's closing the gap. What kind of ground game are you going to have to defeat Amy Grant?
So what we've been doing since it was negative 50 degrees, and I remember that's when I started making calls to people saying I'm going to run. We started knocking doors well before we announced we were going to run. We had 17 meet and greets with different organizations before I announced I was running. Our ground game has been to let the people know that I was there and that I was going to run well before I announced I was going to run. By the time I announced, it was the worst kept secret in the world. Nobody was surprised by it because everyone knew about it. So that's been our ground game. I got supporters first, and then I said, okay, now let's go out there and do the work, instead of doing the work and then hoping people support me later.
Are there any examples or models that you have in mind? I'm thinking there were some very successful campaigns in your neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Lauren Underwood, Sean Casten. Are these role models for you?
Absolutely. So Congressman Casten is someone which has been helpful at the door. I did his volunteer training. So there have been many doors I get to, and they say, you're the guy that did the Casten training. And I say, absolutely, vote for me. I'm riding his coattails. I'm joking, sort of. But I learned from him to do the hard work. And something I learned, actually not from Congresswoman Underwood, but something her mom told me once.
Lauren Underwood's mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who is an amazing woman, Mrs. Underwood. And she once was watching Lauren on stage, and we were next to each other. And I said, you have to be so proud. And she says, I have always been proud of my daughter. I'm just happy that other people can see how special she is. And I took that, and I said, that is the way to do it. And not to focus on making anyone proud, but showing people what I can do and what I can accomplish.
Well, Lauren Underwood was successful. Sean Casten was successful. And maybe, Ken, you could be successful as well, running in the 42nd Legislative District. If folks want to get in touch with you, if they want to find more information, how can they do so?
So I am KMB42.com. And on Facebook and Twitter, I am KMB42. And if you're looking for hashtags, yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Okay,
yes, we can.
All right, get it? Yes, we can, Ken.
Absolutely.
And spell your name for people if they want to find you. Just Google your name.
Do we have enough time for that?
Yes, okay. You have enough time. Look, I got a name that's even longer than yours.
No, it's Ken, Ken, Mejia, Mejia -Beal as in Larry.
All right, very good, Ken. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
He is running in the 42nd Legislative District, folks, and Democrats pull that one off. It'll be quite a victory for the Democratic Party in DuPage County. I want to thank Ken for coming in. Also want to thank Dave Roeder for coming in. And Maya was here as well. Dave, very busy day on the Ben Joravsky Show. And, of course, the young man from Alton, Illinois, the pride and joy of the 618. They back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Yes, they do. Dr. D. Give yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
Once again, everybody, to show your support for Ken Mejia-Beal, K-M as in Mary, B as in boy, 4, F-O-R, and the number's 42, KMB42. And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, chicago.suntimes.com/pages/Joravsky, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcasts. Hey, downloaders, we live stream this program. It's true. Tuesdays through Fridays, 1 until 3 p.m. Central Time. Once again, at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader websites, the Chicago Sun-Times YouTube channel, and we're now live streaming on Facebook. And speaking of Facebook, head over to the page at Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, because we are going to announce our top 3 captions for our caption contest. Will it be your caption? I don't know. Send us the caption. We'll read it and we'll find out. At Benny J Show, BENNY, the letter J Show, JORA, V as in victory, SKY.